Hi there, and welcome to the NGINX Community Chats. During a chat, you're going to hear from some of the people behind open source about things that are open sourcey. You're going to learn a little bit about what's going on inside and outside of F5 and NGINX with respect to open source. And I'm Dave McAllister. I'm the open source technologist here at NGINX. And today we're getting into the bits and bytes a little bit of a project with Ava Hahn. Ava, thank you for joining us so much today. What do you do here at NGINX?
Thank you, Dave. First off, when I joined F5, I joined NGINX directly, and the first product I was on was NGINX Service Mesh. We built that primarily for Kubernetes operators, and it essentially used sidecar proxies or NGINX containers to intercept and proxy traffic between backend services. And our goal there was to sort of enforce, authenticity of the backend traffic, as well as enabling like observability features cluster-wide. I also got to enjoy some work with the NGINX as a service team back when it was NGINX for Azure, patching bugs on their NGINX agent implementation. I also briefly worked in distributed cloud debugging performance issues with their Envoy proxy, and I did some work on the NGINX Rust crate, extending our Rust libraries for dynamically linked module development. And finally, I've landed here on the Unit team, and so far we've pushed out a CLI for NGINX Unit, and I'm also working on shepherding through an open telemetry integration for our users. So generally, what I do here at NGINX is to work on products that sort of make networks safer and faster as a whole.
Yeah, I remember. I actually also joined directly into NGINX while they were under F5 and was fascinated with the service mesh project for this. East-west traffic, north-south traffic. It was always in the ins and outs of traffic were fascinating from this. But you've obviously worked on a lot of open source projects here. What's it like working on open source inside of NGINX?
One thing that kind of keeps me here at NGINX is how much we value our community. Developers here at every team that I've been on are aware of how the community is using our products and aware of community feedback and are sort of focused on making our products better for the people who use them. So it brings my work a lot of meaning to be connected to the people who are using the code that I write, and it really helps me bring like my best energy to every problem that I have to tackle.
You mentioned, and in the list of things that you've worked on, which is darn impressive, by the way,
Thank
this
you.
thing called NGINX Unit. It's a pretty popular open source project, and in fact, I'm wearing the Unit T-shirt and the little Unit three-armed robot in outer space for this. So, but I would be willing to bet that most of the people here have no clue as to what Unit is. Can you give me a little background on what Unit is?
Yeah, NGINX Unit, it's an application server. And generally, an application server allows an application developer to not worry about writing network code, right? If you're writing an application that you want to provide some service, you probably aren't focused on how you want your application to interact with the network specifically. So we're an application server, and you write your application to stick onto our product, and our application server speaks just about every language you could write an application in. Not only do we have native support for PHP, Python, Go, Java, and several other languages, we're also one of the highest performing application servers for WASM components, which means that you can basically bring any language with good WASM bindings you can write your component in that and stick it right on NGINX Unit. So we're kind of what we're about is being both incredibly fast network-wise and very easy to hook up to. We've got a very dedicated user base in the Python community, for example, of people who appreciate how easy it is to hook up their existing Python modules directly to our application server, and bam, they have their Python module is now served directly to the net. We also have people in the PHP community and the Java community who value us similarly.
WASM or WebAssembly, if you know y'all out there aren't familiar with it, but I suspect by this point in time everybody is familiar with it, is actually really important in NGINX terms, as well as now creeping into the larger F5. So if you haven't checked it out, go figure out what's going on with WebAssembly. It'll be really important to you. But I got you on here because you did something really cool. And I'm not quite sure. I have always called this unitctl. So y'all may have a different way of phrasing this. But what is this unitctl? What's it all about?
Yeah, so unitctl is a CLI for Unit, and what it allows us to do is to deliver the best possible user experience at every turn without making any compromises in the actual core Unit code base. Essentially, this CLI, it delivers like, for example, a one command solution for deploying a Unit Docker container with your app already pre-hooked up to it. It also acts as an API client, giving you a way to configure Unit that
Okay.
integrates with your native text editor that you're already using to edit your application code, or allows you to save and load snippets of Unit configuration. Unitctl, it works with both Unit Docker deployments and bare metal on host deployments as well. We were motivated to create this CLI after we engaged with some of our users at various conventions, and also we of course were always looking online for feedback when people like start interacting with Unit. And what we noticed was a lot of users were looking for like an easier way to get started, right? Unit is very good at what it does. And there's always work to do in just automating away all of the little steps people have to take to hook up any application server, right? And beyond that, what we realized was that most of our users actually use us via Docker containers as opposed to the Linux packages that we provide.
Right.
So we saw just a huge opportunity to make life easier for our users by creating this CLI, which delivers just the best first touch experience that we can deliver.
This is one that I think you've really gotten into here, but I'm an old guy. I give me a terminal, give me a command line interface, get the heck out of my way. I'm still in the category of I don't understand why hello world isn't able to be written in, 2 lines of code anymore, and I've got to pad it with 14 billion pieces of graphic, terminal windows and all this other junk around it. So I'm really in favor of this CTL project here. But we're talking to people that this is news to. It's an open source project. How do they find out more about what CTL is and how can they get involved?
Oh, absolutely. So a couple of ways. First off, our documentation is up at unit.nginx.org, and that includes our documentation for our CLI. Other than that, unitctl reaches stable on our next release, and you can get it in our GitHub releases page. That is github.com/nginx/unit. And in our GitHub releases, you will see downloadable binaries for unitctl.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions, whether it was buried into the unit repos or whether it was a separate repo. You just answered that it is part of unit, which makes sense because it is part of unit. So it makes perfect sense
Yeah,
for that.
absolutely.
So this is a question we always like to throw out to our guest here. The NGINX core project, which started way back, Igor started in 2002 with the 10K problem, released in 2004, celebrating its 20th anniversary. Just recently had the 20th year since release here. But we always like to ask our questions. What is your favorite non-NGINX open source project?
Wow, that's a very broad question. I've enjoyed open source projects for quite some time, but right now I think the two projects that I have the most attention invested in are Home Assistant and Nextcloud. Um, uh, just a brief overview: Home Assistant is an open source home automation suite. So this is something that you can install on a spare computer lying around, and then hook up radios to network with all kinds of like third-party sensors and third-party
Wow.
motors, and it'll allow you. For example, run a Zigbee home automation network where my lights are all attached to this open source home automation server, and that's a really fun thing to play around with, especially like finding ways to dim all your lights depending on how much natural lighting there is, and um, having pretty graphs for when people enter and leave different rooms. So that's one of my favorite open source projects right now. The other one, Nextcloud, is sort of like a comprehensive suite of cloud services in in connection with it's there's Nextcloud and Collabora, but both of these in conjunction provide like DAV resources like calendar and contact storage and backup, but also file storage. A way of it sort of will take the place of Dropbox and Google Drive, but then it'll also provide you like an interface like Google Docs or Google Sheets to live edit documents with other people. But all of that is just hosted, home hosted, open source. And I love being able to just to run these things myself and get a feel for what kind of infrastructure is required. And also, it creates a fun little home lab for testing out some of our products like NGINX Service Mesh.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna have to look into that one myself, because one of the big issues for me is trying to incorporate the entire family's group of photos so that we can actually, build trips of photos from multiple places. And there are some cloud solutions on that are available commercially, and none of them as a photographer work. So this one may be a place where I'm going to have to go in and delve into figuring out the way I would approach this problem. So thanks for the tip on that one for
Oh, my
that.
pleasure.
And then, finally, anything else that we need to share? How does someone get started with open source would be a great question, since you've got a unique view and a unique background.
Well, my recommendation is to start using open source software first. That's the first step in anything, is to start using open source software. And then my recommendation from there is to find a program that you use constantly, right? Maybe it's NeoVim, maybe it's Emacs, maybe it's like a calendar application or a notes application that you're using all the time. And you'll know when you're using it all the time, you'll know, oh, this could really use this feature, right? The best way to do open source, in my opinion, is to use it, enjoy it, and then take ownership of it and be the person to add the features that you want to be in the software.
And Richard Stallman thanks you for the endorsement of Emacs there, just to let you know for this. So
I'm sure
thank you,
Emacs
Ava.
needed another endorsement.
Thank you, Ava, for coming on to the NGINX Community Chats and sharing your thoughts and your project with us. And thank all of you for joining us today and meeting some of the people behind the projects and open source, both inside and outside of NGINX. If you have your own thoughts and own ideas, feel free to add them to the comments below. And with that, until next time, may the open source be with you.